Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 268. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed comic creator and talented writer, James Walton. James.
How you doing, guys?
How you doing?
I'm good.
So James, we got connected through our mutual connection, Christian, who you worked with the Fugitive Poems folks. Their Containment Breach, Volume 3.
That was Volume 4. They ended up switching it up.
Oh, did they end up switching it up? Okay. So talk to us a little bit about how did you get connected with the Fugitive Poem guys?
I was just perusing Twitter one day, and I saw basically an ad. We're looking for artists and writers to join us on this anthology, and I was like, hey, I'm a writer. I'm also not published. This would be awesome if I could get into this. So I sent them like 3 or 4 samples. Okay. And then I was on pins and needles for like 2 or 3 weeks. And they sent me an email, hey, we'd love to bring you on. And my heart dropped. I was just like, oh my God, someone actually wants me to write something for them. And then from there, I was just like, okay, it's settled. I'm going to start doing this thing.
So what was that intro that you sent to Christian? What was it that you sent to him?
It was like a 6-page piece on a character in my own universe, which is based on the Egyptian god Set, which within the universe we'll meet him sometime. I don't know when, but he was cursed to be split into separate aspects of what he's the god of. And in that particular piece, he's the god of violence. So he kind of wandered around the city and he kept coming across acts of violence. And he's like, the whole time, he's philosophizing on why people are violent. And he comes to the conclusion that I actually don't remember what the conclusion was. I haven't read that thing in a long time. I think it was like it's human nature or something like that. It wasn't like some super deep thing, but they liked it. I also sent him a piece that I named Lackluster. It's about this guy who has the most boring morning ever, but it turns out he works at this corporation that is holding Cthulhu hostage. And the last piece I sent him was I forgot the name of it. I do not remember the name of that piece because I had written that specifically for that, just to have something completely different. Right. It's about a pigeon that kung fu fights cats. I just wrote that up real quick. I was like, I need something that's completely different because I felt like the first 2 were kind of monster things.
Right.
I need something else. So
right.
Like, what about a pigeon that fights cats with kung fu?
There you go.
Crap out of
them. Yeah. So you're able to connect with Christian, and so you yourself write the comics. So who was he able to pair up with? Who was the artist for your story that you wrote for Containment Breach?
It was a Troubled Odyssey.
Okay.
They were awesome. I can't even think of a better word. They were awesome. It was a great experience. Like I wrote it up, Christian edited it for me, which was my first time ever having to work with an editor. That was awesome. It's like I have a tendency to overthink things. And he was just like, no, dude, just do this and the whole story will make sense. And so I did that and the whole story made sense. And then we got it over to Trouble and they just took it and ran with it. Like we didn't have to change anything. They just were like, oh, okay, this is the script. How about this? And I was like, that's exactly what I saw when I wrote this. That was really
so. I'm really curious. I want to talk to you a little bit about your debut comic, Stagnant Waters. And so what I love about this, and we were talking about that before we went live, is like it is gorgeously produced. How much has this story evolved the almost 20 years since when you first wrote it initially?
to the point that it is essentially a completely different story. Like, the very first version of it was more akin to, I don't know if you remember this game. It's really old. It's from way back in the Super Nintendo days. It was Chrono Trigger. It was a lot
Of
more
course,
akin
yes,
to
yeah,
that.
Crota, of course, yeah, yeah.
And then I realized I'm just writing Chrono Trigger fan fiction, basically. So I kind of started tweaking things, and then it became a little more superhero-y as it kept going, and then it
Mm,
got a little more sci-fi to it, and then it just kind of ballooned outward into this entire universe that it is now. But there are still some things that are the same. Like there's some of the backstory that actually comes from back when I was 16 and I was first writing this thing. But
okay.
if I were to show this to 16-year-old me, they'd be like, "This is something completely different. What is this?"
So what did you say? What are some of the things that you've known that you still kept true to your original 16-year-old self, and what are the things that are completely different than it was when it was in this earlier iterations?
The alien race that we meet, well, we meet a few of them in the book.
Right.
The main guy, the guy that's in charge of everything, he's sitting in the chair. They stay the same. They've been the same since I started. They're
Okay.
well, I guess they have changed a little bit. They've gotten more violent over the years. They've become, at first they were just generic, we're the bad guys. And
Right.
now they're really a force to be reckoned with. Like they
Right.
have their own empire at this point, whereas before they were just a group. The main characters have actually changed a lot too. There used to be more of them, but now it's whittled down to just two guys. Quentin is actually entirely different from what he started as, which I actually like this version of him a lot more.
Okay.
I think he'll be a lot more interesting to read now. Before he was just a generic. He didn't really have any purpose other than just being an ass. No, he's still that, but he's got layers too.
Right.
He's kind of the same. Now he's human. He wasn't human before. He kind of stayed the same, I guess.
Right. And so, because you mentioned too, as like somebody that's has also background in writing screenplays, as it is, how important, how easy was it for you to actually dive into the personalities of the characters?
I'd say to start, it was kind of hard separating everyone into distinct people.
Mm,
But as I continued world building, they became real people to me. So it was just I'm writing about a person that exists, even though they only exist in my head. But I know so much about them at this point that everyone is their own person, which makes it a whole lot easier. Especially, I can look out in the world and I can see these people. I might not see them the same person every moment, but I can see them somewhere, which makes it easier as I keep going. Like, oh, I saw a person today who did something that Ian would do, or I saw a person today who did something that Quentin would do, which kind of helps solidify who these people are in my head. It makes it a lot easier going forward. But definitely, bottom line, making them real people is the key.
mm. And so, what aspect of that did you find out as you were kind of reworking the script and rewriting it over a few times? How did the actual plot change? Was there any moments as you're writing the script to this that your main characters kind of took the story in a different direction that you weren't planning on from the original script?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, the original, the very first version of the script
Yeah.
was actually different to actually still have the first few pages. which I have no clue where they're at right now. They're somewhere in a file on my computer. I'll have to dig for it one day, and maybe I'll throw them up on Twitter.
So I'm really curious about talking about the world building aspect of it. Now, what parts of the world building of creating this universe did you find easy for you to do, and which ones did you find actually more of a chore to do, whether it be like creating languages or politics or religions or just basic physics of certain planets? What were some of the aspects that you enjoyed, and what aspects did you find a bit more challenging?
So, easiest part, hands down, is the history. That
Yeah.
I breezed through the history. I took like 2 or 3 weeks, and I wrote. I think it's at shoot. I don't remember how many pages it is. I know the whole document is like 165 pages of world building, but I went from the literal Big Bang of the universe all the way up to the end of the universe and then a little bit beyond that because there's still some story after the universe ends. That part was definitely the easiest. I've probably rewritten it like 150 times at this point, but every time I rewrite it, it's just as easy as the first time. It's just I got to go in because I've thought, oh, this moment on May 15th, 1969 could actually be better if it was like this and it was on May 17th. That part's definitely easy. But the figuring out the physics of everything,
Mm.
that's the hardest part. Because it's like I want it to be believable. I don't want to
Right.
just magically we can do this. I want to be able for someone who knows what they're talking about to look at it and go, yeah, that could work. It's wrong, but it could work at the very least. Like I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to get everything right, and I'm not even going to try to get everything right. But I want it to be close enough that it makes sense. So like
Mm.
the just as an example, the faster than light travel. I have a magic way for it to work, but I'm trying to have some scientific backing to it. Like,
Mm.
yeah, we have this magic or that makes it easier to have faster than light travel, but it's based on 0 point energy. So someone with a degree who knows what they're talking about can look at that and say, yeah, maybe.
And so, because you bring that up, because part of your inspiration that you mentioned in a previous interview was, just, Tolkien being able to, create in-depth, worlds as he set it up. So why, if like Tolkien was an inspiration to you in a fantasy setting, um, what made you want to create a sci-fi universe instead of, say, like a fantasy universe?
Well, even though I love talking the way that I do, sci-fi has always been my first love.
Oh, is
I
it?
was like, well, why not take what I learned from reading Tolkien and that depth of like you could go to Middle Earth. It's so detailed you could go there. So like, why
Right.
not take that and do it with sci-fi,
Right.
which is Star Wars.
Right. Yeah. And so talk us a little bit also about some of the different like alien species and the planets that you've created, and what can your readers expect from the different planets as well?
So at present, there's about 6 main species. We've
Okay.
got the Kelm, which are the big bads. We've got the Lord. I see it written so much I forgot how to pronounce it because I came up with a special way to pronounce it. It's basically Quadrati, which is the
Okay.
corniest name ever. When I'll describe them in a second. And then we've got the Haraxians, the Jogon. How many did I say so far? 4. The
Yeah.
Jogon and the Araxi. Yeah, I don't talk about them too much, so I forget their name all the time because they aren't important yet. And then we've got the Nantani, which I do mention in the book.
Okay.
So, oh, got them right there. That's actually 3 of them. So the Haraxian is the blue guy.
Okay.
They're more like because everyone's kind of. I went the Star Trek route where, not Star Trek, Star Wars route, where a planet is kind of one thing I went with that for that because I was like, I needed it to be simple so that
Right.
they're easily understandable, and then as we meet more of them, then I can go into depth with it. But the Hyraxians are more like politics and science. That's their thing.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
the Quadrati, which is the green guy there, they're an insect species, which most of them have four legs. Some of them only have two, but that's where I got quad Roddy from. It's like, they have four legs, so why not? It's like the dominant species of them, like or race of them. Yeah, two leg people aren't as important as the four leg people, but they're
Okay.
more warlike and really just about controlling things. So all
Mm.
of their science is geared towards control.
Mm.
And we've got the Kelm, which yeah, I can tell that. So this particular Kelm isn't actually a representation of what the Kelm really look like. He's actually sickly. He's
Okay.
a he's a runt, basically. He's the only reason he's even this far out in the universe, because they're actually pretty far away from Earth. The only reason he's this far out is because he's a runt and he fails a lot, at least
Okay.
by Kelm standards. So his punishment is you have to go far out. That's what you can do. You can go prove yourself
Okay.
somewhere far, far away from us because we can't stand
Okay.
you. Yeah, so he's the sickly version of them. When we
He's the
see one,
sickly bird.
they'll be you'll understand why they're the force to be reckoned with.
Right.
We've got Yulon here. He's a Jogon. For the Jogon, they were actually conquered a long time ago. And so the Jogon that we see now aren't the actual original Jogon. These are genetically engineered by the Quadrati to be
Oh wow.
controlled. Is
Okay.
they're essentially like the perfect warriors. So
Mm.
the Quadrati said, "Okay, you're already perfect. We can make you better though, and we can make you something we can control."
So stagnant waters. I'm very curious about the meaning of the title. When people see the word stagnant waters, what's the meaning behind the title of your series?
So one of the main themes of the story is that the universe is changing.
Mm.
So I thought, what's something that doesn't really represent change, but there's some change that comes from it. I thought
Okay.
stagnant waters, that's literally stagnant water, but from it, you get a mosquito. It's not the change you want, you don't like it, but you got something from it. And I
Right.
thought that really kind of represents what's happening here perfectly. Well,
Mm.
universe is changing, but it's changing in a way that nobody's really gonna like,
Right.
but it's changing.
Right. Yeah. And so talk to us a little bit about your two main characters. I know one of the taglines that you talk about in this book is like you basically have these these two characters that could either be the salvation or the destruction of the universe or something along those lines.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
with Ian and Quentin, they're kind of thrust into this thing.
Mm.
They're really put into a situation where they're going to have to decide what they're going to be to the universe because they are essentially the crux of that change. They
Mm.
literally are the keys to what the Kelm have been looking for. And through that, things are going to happen that is really going to define which path either of them choose. And you know, one path saves the universe, the other is going to lead to its destruction. Which I'm really going to have fun with playing with how they deal with that decision.
Mm.
Which I think I talked about it before. Whereas Ian wants nothing to do with it. He's not that kind of person. You know, he's really reserved. He doesn't want to. He's not going to want to have to deal with this. Whereas Quentin is essentially a narcissist.
Mm.
So finding out he's the center of the universe pretty much is going to be awesome for him. It's really going to be fun especially when we get deeper in and things really open up, like, and really start revealing secrets, because there's so much more to why they're the center of this, both on Earth and just in the universe at large. It's gonna be awesome. I kind of wish I could just tell you the story now.
Because you mentioned that, like, initially you had about 170 pages of notes put together for this.
Yeah.
And how much, now that issue 1 is already created, and I'm sure you're working on issue 2 as we speak. How many issues do you see, like, your initial story arc take place?
The initial arc is in 3 parts.
Okay.
Right now, I'm kind of tweaking it a little bit because the original version of the arc was going to be 3 12-issue arcs. I was like, that might be a little long to get all of the answers that you're looking for, and then there's still more to go after that. Right. So I'm kind of tweaking it to get it down to 6-issue arcs and really build up to this climax moment that will reveal all of the secrets by the end of all of it.
Okay. All right. And so and so what are some of the aspects of it that you feel as though that when we're talking about the actual the creation of the arcs and the creation of the stories, without giving anything away, obviously, is there anything particular that you even like to reread and smile about, thinking, wow, I can't wait for my audience to discover this aspect?
My absolute favorite is actually the introduction of the scribe, which is the guy who's narrating. Because he's not just narrating, he's actually a character in the story.
Oh, cool.
So he's actually, I can't wait to reveal who he actually is, because that's going to be awesome. That's a ways out. But definitely that. And then my next favorite, just because I like history stuff too, is going to be where their powers actually come from. It's like in the issue 1, it appears that their powers are coming from the guy who abducted them. That's not what's happening there, though. So I can't wait to reveal that part. The twins, the time traveling twins, they're probably number 3, because there's some stuff that they're going to do that I can't wait to get to. I can't even tell you that part because it would tell too much.
So talk to us a little bit. You went through halfway through this. You were able to get another writer because this is taking a few years, and you had a delay on getting the whole thing together. Talk to us a little bit about the creative aspects you're able to do to introduce that second artist into your comic book.
So for that's actually how the transition page of the scribe came to be. I was like, well, if this is going to change, I had already kind of thought timelines are going to be shifting a little bit here, which my mom actually told me about a show where it's like a comedy and a drama at the same time. So the camera changes when it's telling the drama side. It's got a drama-like camera. When it's on the comedy side of the story, it changes to like a sitcom type camera. So I was like, well, I'm changing artists, so that's kind of the same thing. So I dropped in that extra page of the scribe, basically saying the timeline has changed, to explain why the art suddenly looks different. It's like, yeah, that works. And now the timeline is this. I plan on sticking with this artist for as long as possible. If it changes again, I hope it doesn't, because I really like Dave. But if it does again, timeline will change again. We'll use that to explain why there's a new artist.
So have you also, looking at, because you created this expansive universe, how much of a possibility would it be, looking at it from, say, like the gaming side of this? Have you looked at trying to make this into like your world as a tabletop role playing game module or something along those lines as well?
I have, but I don't know enough about tabletop to make it work. So I
Yeah.
decided I would make a video game instead.
Oh
So I was
wow.
like, I'll make a
Okay.
video game. Well, I could make a video game in this universe. Plus, I can get RPG Maker and make it myself pretty much. I haven't
Right.
gotten it yet. 'Cause I'm like, I need to actually know what I'm doing before I start investing extra money into something else. But yeah, I'm definitely, it won't be the same story, but it'll be a part of the story. Because
Okay.
that is actually one of my goals. I want to have it cross multiple media platforms
Hmm.
so that anyone, I don't like comics. Well, here's a video game. You like video games? So you don't like video games? How about maybe this cartoon if I can get that done at some point,
Right.
or this book. You want some
Right.
prose? Got some prose for you. Yeah,
Right.
definitely want to have that shared universe, which that actually I was inspired to do that by Marvel. I was like,
Mm.
that shared universe is just, it's awesome that I can look at
Right.
a TV show and it, I mean, they don't do it as much as I wish they would, but I can watch a TV show and it has an effect on the movie. So I want to do that. A book, a video game, a comic, everything. And it all has bearing in what's actually going on in the universe. You can read the
Right.
comic and find out maybe something you didn't find out in the game. You can see something in the game you didn't see in the book.
Right.
We'll definitely wanna
And
do
so do you see this mostly as like a sci-fi genre or like a superhero genre then?
that. I'd say it's more so sci-fi. It just so happens to also have superheroes, but
Okay.
definitely more so sci-fi. It's
Right.
the superheroes really don't want to be superheroes, with the exception of one that we'll meet in issue two.
Okay. All right. If somebody wants to actually pick up this comic book and actually download it or read it now, where's the best place they could go to?
So right now we're on Global Comics. I'm
Okay.
also going to vpcomics.com. I'll be
Okay.
on there as well pretty soon. And I'm also on comics.com with an X.
Okay. I guess, as you say, you have lots of people who've been reading this, and you've gotten great reviews for this comic book so far. So all those fans and readers that are out there that enjoyed issue number one, when can they expect to see issue number two?
I'm shooting for by the fall, making comics expensive.
Yep.
That's really the only thing slowing me down right now. Just making
Right.
sure that, because I don't want to ask anyone, hey, can you maybe do a little bit for free and I'll get you on the back end? I don't want to do that. I want to pay
Right.
everybody up front as much as possible to get as much done. So I'm saving up so that I can say, here you go, Dave, do 10
Right.
pages. We'll come back to the next 10.
Right. So James, if people want to learn more about you, where's the best place they could go to?
Best place is going to be Twitter, because I'm there every day posting
Mhm.
a whole bunch of stuff,
Right.
mostly just saying, hey, come support my comic. But from there, you'll be able to get any other link that I might throw up. If you want to go join the Facebook page, because we do have a Facebook page for the publishing company, you can find the link on Twitter. Twitter is definitely my home.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, so listen, James, you got to come back on when you're ready for issue number two. And it's fantastic comics. So anybody out there who is a fan of the sci-fi genre, this is an expansive world, and it's well written and it's well received. And I had a huge blast checking it out. And thank you so much, James, for coming on.
No problem. Well, thanks for having me. Hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, before we went live, we are just talking about you wearing your anime T-shirt, and I was talking about the fact that like I've never actually watched Naruto, right? Is that did I say it right, James? No, oh man, I know. Yeah.
It's It's a little bit off. It's Naruto. It sounds like you said it, but it's softer. It's a softer.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's Naruto.
Okay. All right. I got you. All right.
But
And
that's
so-
how Americans say it. We might all be saying it wrong. Who
Could
knows?
be all saying it wrong. Who knows?